Hello everyone and welcome to the next video. This video we're going to be showing you how to do section cuts again, day and night cycle animations, and we're going to also outline how you would do a kind of flyover or drone shot sort of styled animation. So we've got the kind of contents page here, and yeah, basically we're going to go over section cuts again, even though we've already done them, but they're very simple, straightforward things to do. Then we'll do a day and night cycle animation where you kind of create a series of cameras and they kind of act like keyframes for anyone who's familiar with animation already. And then we just kind of scroll through different daytime settings on different cameras, and then that will give us a nice consistent cycle. And then lastly, we will be going over a flyover animation, which is exactly the same as the day and night cycle, except from the cameras are just in different positions around our model. So don't worry if very little of this is making sense right now. I'm sure you'll pick it up straight away. It's very simple and is damn sight easier than doing these kinds of animations with the likes of 3ds Max, which require a lot more knowledge and a lot more planning to put together. Okay, so we'll just get started. Okay guys, so the first thing we're going to want to do to make our little day-night animation is we're going to create a section cut. So we've already gone over this in a previous video, but just to show you again, we go up to Tools, Section Plane, name it whatever we want, so we'll just call this Example, and then hit on Place, and then again we get the option of where we want to create that cut, what axis to cut it on. That'll be different for all of you depending on what it is you're showing. So we'll just click on this one here, and then once we've got that, we're going to just click on the Move tool, select the section cut, and then we'll move it across on the red axis till we get a cut that we're looking for. So we'll just take this one here as an example. So something to look out for is this wall section in here hasn't actually cut properly. Well, we've not actually made this bit properly in that it's not a solid object, so it's not giving us that black cut there. But I'm sure you guys will hopefully not run into this problem, as you'll probably have made your models a lot more carefully than we made this kind of slapdash together one. So we've got our section cut now, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to set up the animation. So basically, to do animations with SketchUp just in its default state, you just use cameras. So what we'll do is we'll just click off the section cut just now, and in fact before we set up the camera, a really important thing that we have to do is, if you're using hidden line at the moment, which is what we've got here for the style, you need to change it to something else like 3D printed style, landscape architectural style, whatever, but you basically need one of these because these have the shadows on them, whereas hidden line there's no shadows. So we'll just use this shaded one here, and obviously without the shadows you can't see the day-night cycle, so it's really important to set that up before you do anything else. So let's say we want this to be our sort of, the viewport we have right now, we want this to be our camera because we can kind of see inside the building and see how the shadows are working. So what we do is we go up to Tools, Advanced Camera Tools, and click on Create Camera, and we'll just call this one Morning, because this will be our first sort of camera. This would be right at the start of the animation where it's sort of morning light that we're trying to show. So we've got that camera in place now, and what we can do is if we sort of move away from where we set up the camera and click on this morning tab at the top again, it takes us right back to where our camera was looking when we created the camera. So basically when you create a camera, it just kind of takes whatever you're looking at the moment and creates a camera right at that point where you're looking at things from. So we have the first camera in, and now what we can do is over on the right hand side here, you can see there's a shadows tab, and you have date and time, and when you change them, you know, it changes the time of day or whatever, and that of course affects the sort of lighting levels within the building. So what we'll do then is we're going to set this to be an early time, so we'll make this 7:25 in the morning, and there's no sun at all on the scene, and it's the middle of January type thing, so it's going to be very dark. So we've got that. Now the important thing we need to do now is we need to right click on this morning tab up the top, and then we need to hit update. Now what that does is basically it just sets whatever we've changed as being the default for this camera now, so it'll be in the morning. Now what we can do is, if we go on, we're going to create another camera, advanced camera tools, create camera, we'll call this one afternoon, and as you can see it's still set really early here, but if we scroll along to make it say 12 o'clock, around about there, and then we right click on the afternoon tab and click update, what we can now see is if we click on the morning one, the time is, you know, a lot different. And then if we click on the afternoon one, it kind of progresses through the time of day there. And that's exactly what we're kind of looking for from this animation. And then in fact we could go on tools again and we'll create one more camera and we'll call this night. And then from there what we'll do is we'll just scroll along again till we get later on in the day. And at this point it's telling us that for January it'll be, you know, the sun will be gone again by 4:30 in the afternoon. And we'll right click on night and click update. So now if we go right back to the beginning and click on morning again, we'll just give it a little minute to scroll through everything. And then after we've done that, we'll just do a little test run of the animation before we actually render it out, because that takes a little bit longer. But we'll right click and hit on play animation. It'll take a little minute to get started, but it should work and show us the full day cycle for this building. Okay, so we can see all the shadows and everything moving, and we can see, you know, sort of where there'll be daylight at different parts of the day. And again, it's now getting later and later, and we've reached the end of the cycle. So if we're happy with that, what we can do then is we'll hit stop animation. We go up to file, export, animation, and video. So we'll just call this day cycle, and what you have is there's a whole there's tons of different options actually for how you can export this, and this will probably depend on what you're working on, like what bit of hardware you're working on, as to, you know, if you can do full HD or not. It's something you'll just have to play around with and see if it's taking too long or not, but generally you want a nice high quality, a nice sharp animation. Always looks a lot better than a very pixelated one, doesn't look massively professional. So these are the settings I've got here, so if you follow them you should probably get something that looks pretty good. And then we'll just hit export, and as you can see here now, it's going to take however long. So there's 900 frames in this, and it's telling me it's going to take about 5 minutes, which isn't that bad. And as you see, the file size is creeping up though as well, so that's something you need to be aware of too. So we're close to 1/10 of a gigabyte now or something. So yeah, we'll be right back once this is finished creating. Okay guys, so the animation has finished. If we go to wherever you've decided to export it to, you'll find it there. We'll click on it and have a little look. So, you know, it's a fairly good animation. It's really easy to put these together, a lot easier than the likes of 3ds Max or anything like that, which have a lot more settings to make something that looks kind of smooth like this when it's moving. So a problem we had when doing this is if you wait a second when the animation is supposed to stop, it doesn't stop, and then it kind of rewinds itself, which is something you might run into, and I ran into a lot, and I forgot to change it for this one, but we'll show you it now. Is when you're exporting your animation, so if we go and do that step again, we go file, export, animation, video, and then you go into options, you'll see this little checkbox here, loop to starting scene. You need to remove that, and then when you get rid of that, it won't do that thing where at the end it rewinds back through. So yeah, that's pretty much everything about an animation. Now something we'll just show you quickly is if you wanted to do an animation that's kind of looking over as if like a drone shot, you know, where it kind of spins around and orbits around the building, you would make it in exactly the same way as we did that close-up sort of day-night cycle one. In that, what we'll do is I'll just delete these cameras here just now, so I can show you what it would be like from scratch, and get rid of that, delete. Yep. So we would say we wanted to start here. We would again just go up to Tools, Advanced Camera Tools, Create Camera, and we'll just call this Start. And then what you would do is you would then spin around however much you want to rotate around the scene, and we'll just create another camera here, and we'll do Tools, Advanced Camera Tools, Create Camera, and then we have our second camera, and then lastly we'll make another one here, say, and we'll go on Tools, Advanced Camera Tools, Create Camera. Okay, and so if we went back to the start, as you can see, it's kind of taking us through it in reverse here, but yeah, you get that kind of panning around effect around the building, and it gives you a good kind of overall appreciation for what the building looks like. So as you can see, the camera's kind of paused here on one of these current ones, and yeah, you can kind of pan around to wherever you want. So an important thing to note for doing this kind of panning around shot is there are actually a bunch of different settings you can mess around with for animations. So if you go into View, Animation, and then Settings, you have this here, which is Scene Transitions and Scene Delay. Now basically what scene transitions are is basically the amount of time it takes for the camera to move between one camera and the other. So if you've set it up and it flies around the building in, like, 1 second, you can help that by increasing the scene transition time. And then scene delay is basically when it arrives at a camera, how long is it going to stay there before it moves and starts getting on its way to the next camera. So I think by default this is normally a bit higher, and then it creates lots of juttery stops in your animation. You could reduce that to 0 and it won't stop at all, or you can have it stop, and then maybe if you were planning on putting some text on these animations as well, if you know how to do that, you could have text pop up every time it stops. It's up to you. But yeah, that's basically the animation settings. There's lots of other settings, but you don't really want to mess around with them just now. And then it's important to note for this one as well is that if you created a camera here, and a camera here, then you would want to keep that setting where it loops back to the start on, because then it'll just go from that last camera background to the start, and then you get like a full spin. But that's pretty much everything you need to know to mess around and create animations.